Medical professionals of Reddit, what's the worst sex-related injury you've seen at your workplace? Does it count if I saw it prior to the doctor? Did some 8v work for a friend of mine that managed a swing club. He was having sex with some girl on this sort of rolling gurney bed out in the middle of the lounge area with like 50+ people enjoying the show. They accidentally slid off the bed, and in the jumble and ensuing thump on the ground, an audible pop was heard. He fractured his penis. That pop. Poor guy's junk almost immediately looked like a deflated purple balloon. This was many years ago now, and you can rest assured that I never let old broke dick forget. That is what best friends are for, right? Janitor heated petroleum jelly and injected it into his dick with a syringe. He was trying to make his dick bigger. He added more. Other janitor saw him and decided to do the same. So turns out, with nowhere to go, petroleum jelly forms granulomas under the skin, which get infected. Word was the tip of his dick and the base wouldn't get hard anymore, only the middle, and abscesses formed, resulting in what was described as the dick looking like maggots had bored tunnels through it. Janitor 1 was hospitalized for several weeks. As for Janitor 2, he ended up with several ulcerating wounds in his pelvic region. You could stick a finger in them. They were that big. Apparently injecting your dick with petroleum jelly is fairly common. Some girls have also attempted to inject their boobs to give themselves implants. It has led to deaths because bits and pieces of it can dislodge and travel to the lungs. Don't do it. Janitor heated petroleum jelly and injected it into his dick with a syringe. That's a no from me, dog. I've seen a crystal clear imprint of a clothing iron to the ass. The thought process was something like, if candle wax equals kinky, ironing your ass equals mega kinky. I don't know. Also, a pair of junkies got high and shot heroin in the guy's dick and we had to fill it the whole thing. He was distraught about the size difference. If candle wax equals kinky, ironing your ass equals mega kinky. Using a feather is kinky. Using the whole bird is just perverted. I had a patient come into the ER with runs of VTACH dangerous arrhythmia because his boyfriend sprinkled methamphetamine powder on a dildo and stuck it in his ass. Very absorbent up there, and suddenly your heart is crapping out at a rate of 220. Nothing worse than dildos, vibrators and other objects stuck where the sun don't shine. One chap did say that he likes sticking things up his ass, and that's fair enough. But the strange excuses are usually the most entertaining part of it. Worst genital injury was a guy who drilled his scrotum with a cordless drill doing DIY. Don't secure your workpiece between your knees if you want to be sure to keep both testicles. Gentlemen. Paragraph 1. Okay. Paragraph 2. Wait, no. Broken penis. Dude's testicles were the size of grapefruits. I assume the internal pudendal artery was pumping blood into them from somewhere. Was an MA then. Now in med school. Was a neat injury. But nothing we could do for him in urgent care. He needed surgery for sure. Did see a bottle stuck in a rectum x-ray as well. I'm not one to judge. Keep on freaking on. But don't put glass in your ass, please. My friend works at an ER in a small rural area in Canada. Apparently this young guy comes in and has a can of Axe body spray stuck in his rectum. He was extremely embarrassed and his excuse was that he accidentally sat on it. 18-year-old kid had a cheap dildo break way up his ass. Was bleeding from his butt. Needed surgery. In my state you're not legally an adult until 19, so he had to call his mom for consent. And she demanded staying with him through his entire visit. His butt ate the entire dildo. Probably a solid 7 to 9 inches of plastic. Top 2 inches is what broke off. Also yes. The medical consent rules are screwy. Applies for sexual assault as well. Unless the parent was the suspected assailant. Till there are 3 states in the Union that have an age of majority higher than 18. Worked at a physical therapy clinic for years. 78-year-old man herniated a disc in his neck eating out his girlfriend. He was a longtime patient and friend of the therapist, so we got the whole story. Our patient P was old, rich, and single, and loved all the sleazy bits that came with it. One day his 39-year-old girlfriend asked him to return a favor, so P goes down on a woman for the first time ever at age 78. Not really knowing what he was doing, he went at her like a dog drinking water, his words. A few moments later he felt a pop and his arm went numb. He came to us with a nearly useless left arm about 2 days later. My boss was laughing so hard during the eval that I went in the treatment room to check on him. P insisted I stay and hear the whole story. P died a couple months later from something unrelated. I miss that crusty old bastard a lot. I used to work weekend night shifts. Had a younger girl come in one weekend. Despite her age, she had a hip replacement and it was dislocated. Put it back in and away she went. Next weekend, she's back again. Same thing. Third weekend in a row and there she is. Finally I ask what she's doing to dislocate her hip and she says her boyfriend keeps bending her leg back too far during sex. I told her to try different positions. Countless cases of stuff stuck up the butt. Dildos, vibrators, cucumbers, toilet bowl brushes. If it's possible to get in the butt, someone has needed it surgically removed. Toilet bowl brush was the most shocking. However, the funniest was reconstructing a giant white, oddly realistic veiny cock on the back table to make sure they had pulled it all out. Pro tip: if you get something stuck up your butt, don't make up some fantastic story about naked light bulb changes. We know how it got there. You know how it got there. There's no shame in liking butt stuff. Just tell us your personal time went awry. Back in medical school I was on a surgery rotation with a classmate. Our first day we got split into groups. By chance. My first case was an appendectomy. By chance. His first case was helping deliver a jewel-encrusted dildo from the rectum of a 250-pound guy. He was at the business end when it crowned and was responsible for catching as the surgeons pushed from above. Not my story but my mom's. She used to work in the oncology department of her hospital a while back. One day she comes home, sits me down, and says, "Syphilis in the eye. You always make sure your partner is clean. Don't take their word for it. I don't care what you do, just syphilis in the eye." That's all I needed to hear. Kinda sex-related. On Andrews AFB in the 80s, a guy was caught molesting his daughter by his wife. As the cops arrived, he sat on his front concrete steps and hammered his junk off. My mom worked on him in the emergency room. He still ended up in jail. I'm a paramedic. We recently had a gentleman shoot himself in the head of his penis with a handgun. I realize it's not really a sexual injury per se, and the op probably wanted more. I fell on this and it got stuck in my ass type injuries, but this felt relevant. My mother worked in an and told me a story about a guy who was high on angel dust and couldn't get it up. His friend told him to stick a chicken bone in his dick and he'd be able to have sex. He shoved it in knuckle end first and shredded the head of his dick. Imagine being a chicken and dying for this. Uncle-in-law anesthesiologist had a patient come in that had poured concrete in his own ass. While trying to make a custom dildo, they had to chisel the concrete out of his rectum. Infected penile implant. His dong looked like a purple tall boy beer can. They had to take him to the OR, literally fillet his man parts, take out the implant, and wash it all out. Worst part, they left it open for several days. Ick. Mini lava lamp stuck in the rectum. Power cord was sticking out like a tail. Mini lava lamp stuck in the rectum sounds like a Cards Against Humanity card. Labial hematoma. Couple had sexy times, then got into a fight. He kicked her in the crotch. This burst a blood vessel in the labia, which made it swell to the size of a large pear. That shit hurts. She used many colorful words to describe what she thought of him. A coworker was getting divorced. One night his soon-to-be ex called about something and she could tell he was having a bad day. So to cheer him up, she told him all about how while she and her new boyfriend were having sex, he shoved a dildo up her ass and it just got sucked up. After failed attempts to remove it, they went to the where she got surgery to remove it. After surgery, doctors sanitized the dildo and returned it to her. This story did not make him feel better. Dude stuck a pencil up his urethra. Wood is porous. It got stuck. For a day, he couldn't pee around it. And initially that's what his complaint was. Urinary retention. Finally, in the exam room, when the doc asked him WTF with the eraser sticking out of his dick, did the guy fess up? He ended up needing surgery. He was also 70-ish. Old enough to know better. Writer's block. Exotic. Special ordered venomous spider up the ass. Guy called an ambulance because he wasn't sure if he could put bug bite cream up there too, as the packaging said for external use only. Lost entire transverse section of necrotic bowel. Lived, but poops in a bag now. If only the spider had come with the same warning. Typical not a medical professional, but I had a friend who was a hospital pharmacist. He said a patient came in with a coffee thermos in his ass. Cap first. He got the rest of the thermos out but the cap stayed. After a couple days he finally decided to go to the hospital because he couldn't get it out. The cap ended up festering bacteria and he had part of his colon removed. Now that guy is in his 30s with a colostomy bag. A guy came into the emergency department because his ass hurt after his boyfriend was fisting him. It had torn his bowel. He had to get a colostomy. It wasn't like life-ending or anything, but imagine going to the ED after sex and getting told you're getting a colostomy. I had a woman in her 50s that had been fisted by her boyfriend while they had recreationally taking Lortab and Somas. She apparently was really into it and was asking him to do it harder. Then he pulled his arm out and noticed blood everywhere. He called for an ambulance and she had a significant bowel tear. She had surgery and a colostomy, and several complications post-op and ended up on a ventilator long-term unable to wean. Her grown children didn't know what caused it. The boyfriend was very attentive and stayed by her side. He was very nice and I know he had to be dealing with some guilt. Eventually, her prognosis was so poor they withdrew life support and she died. Every time I had any conversations with the boyfriend, I noticed how huge his fists and forearms were. Wow. Imagine dying because you willingly got fisted up your ass so hard. That's an awkward conversation to have with Saint Peter.